How's it going, everyone? Today we got a story time of a kid in the subscribers class who starts to identify as Skibidi Toilet. Dude, I can't even say that with a straight face. I swear this generation is sincerely doomed. So if that's an interesting story to you, then sit back, relax, subscribe to the channel if you're new and like stories. Leave a like in the video right now to claim your free nothing. And with that being said, let's just jump right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Tommy. So anyways, this all happened one day a couple months ago. So there's a kid in Tommy's class who we're going to call Ben. Ben was an interesting guy. I mean, if this kid is later on in the story going to start identifying as Skibidi Toilet, well, then you already know he's interesting. Anyways, so one day, Tommy's in class, and this kid comes in. And something's just a little bit different, right? They're wearing a name tag. And it was weird because at this point, like, why would you wear a name tag after, like, a couple weeks of being in class? Like, yeah, maybe it makes sense for, like, if you wanted to wear a name tag on the first day of class, which I'm not going to lie, it's even a little bit weird. If they're not handed out and it's not like everyone's doing it, it's a little weird to do that either way. Anyways, though, this kid comes in wearing a name tag. And the name tag, instead of saying Ben, which was Buddy's name, right? That's his name. It said Skibidi. So at this point, you know, the subscriber, Tommy, kind of turns over, looks at one of his friends, kind of gives him a little poke and is like, yo, and like looks up at this kid who has a name tag. And it just says Skibidi on the name tag. Like they thought, like for a second at first, the reasonable person would assume, okay, this guy's trolling. And this is some kind of, like, unfunny joke. Like, okay, Buddy tried to, you know, rip a joke and missed. Like, this happens. It happens to the best of us. Sometimes it happens to some of us more than others. And maybe Ben just tried to be funny here and just, like, failed on the execution and the planning and the idea and the entire joke. It just wasn't funny. But either way, right, so Tommy kind of looks over at his friend, gives him a little nudge, and his friend looks up and, you know, looks at Ben. Sees the name tag that says Skibidi and just looks back and is like, kind of gives, because it's middle of class, so they're not going to start talking, but kind of like looks at Tommy and gives him a bit of a confused look in the sense of like, I don't know either, bro. Like, that's kind of weird. Anyways, though, so they kind of don't think anything of it. Like, Tommy really just at this point thinks it's some kind of like unfunny joke with poor execution that no one else found funny. He doesn't for a second think that it's like an actual serious thing. So the both of them, meaning Tommy and his friend, just kind of brushed it off, didn't think much of it, and honestly didn't even talk about it afterwards. I mean, I think they kind of spoke about when this story gets crazier and crazier, they kind of like reflect back on it. But at the moment, in that moment, they just, or like later that day, they just totally forgot about it. It was just like kind of like a weird thing. Like every single day, like there'll be things that are like, huh, that's kind of strange. But if you don't really think much of it, which, you know, he just thought it was kind of a crappy joke that just didn't work, you know, you're not going to think that much of it. Anyways, though, so the next day is when stuff gets really, actually, no, I'm jumping ahead. That night is when things get interesting. So they follow Ben on Instagram, which, by the way, if you want to submit stories, like this story was submitted to me, all you got to do is go to Instagram, look up Connor Pugs, follow me, and then message me your story. Do not message me, do you want a story? Yes, I do. It's how I make my videos. So just send me the story, and I will find them there. Anyways, though, so they followed Ben on Instagram. So they kind of like, I don't know, you just follow kids in your class. That's what I would do. I've always kind of had like a gripe against people who are in your class, who know who you are. You request to follow them. They accept your follow request, and then they just don't follow you back. I'm like, bro, you're not a celebrity. You're not famous. Like, even on my account, now, not my private one, but my public one has over 1 million followers. If I know someone, I'll follow them back because it's not that deep. Anyways, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. That night, Tommy was sitting in bed. He was on Instagram, probably looking at Instagram Reels, watching someone die on Instagram Reels for the 10th time that day, because I don't know why Instagram Reels is like that, but I see people die like 17 times a day from like car crashes. I'm like, dude, is this not against terms of service? Anyways, though, he's just kind of chilling, and that's when he sees that Ben posts his story. So I don't know, he was just casually like clicking through stories or whatever, and that's when he gets to Ben's, and it says, I now identify as Skibidi Toilet, my new name is Skibidi, and I would like you to refer to me as such. And it was like a photo of like, it was like a black background. So either just like a photo of like, like if you just like press it up against your pants or a wall, the photo looks black or whatever with this text on top of it. So immediately Tommy screenshots this, sends it to his friend who we'll call him Will. I don't know. We'll give him a name. He sends it to Will and is like, yo, question mark, and sends that to him. So Tommy sends that photo to Will, and, they get on call for a second, and they start talking about this. And Tommy at first is like, bro, if this is a joke, he's really, like, stretching this. Like, he's really, like, making this, like, he's milking this joke. And it's not even like it started as a funny joke. It started as a good joke. And over time, like, he just keeps making references and milking the joke till it becomes brutally unfunny. It started brutally unfunny. And there's a certain point where it almost becomes funny how much you milk the brutally unfunny joke from the sheer irony of you doing that. But this was not one of those cases. So anyways, at this point, Tommy kind of like is on the phone with Will, and Will brings up the possibility. He's like, dude, like, I know like this is super troll or whatever, but at this point, like, we got to consider the fact that maybe he's not joking. And, Tommy looks at him, he's like, dude, come on. He says he identifies as freaking Skibidi Toilet. Like, get out of here. And Will's like, I don't know, man. Like, he came in with a name tag, and he wasn't, like, going around being like, hey, guys, like, nice to meet you, I'm Skibidi. He wasn't trolling. Like, he just very casually had that name tag on. And then he posts on his story. Yeah, I mean, the story post could have been a joke. It could have been a troll, very obviously. I mean, at this point, Tommy and Ben still believe that this was some elaborate, unfunny, cringy joke with poor execution. They were only now slightly considering, emphasis on the slight, because this was not like a number one, like, yes, this is what's going to happen. This was a slight consideration that there was potentially a chance that he actually was dead serious. So anyways, the next day, they roll into school. And this is where things get really strange. So anyways, they get into the class with Ben, which is towards the later half of the day. And there's already some murmurs about something happening. Like, anyway, so Tommy and Will were at lunch, and they overheard some kid being like, yo, you hear about, like, what's up with Ben? And Tommy's like, yeah, he, like, posted stuff on his story, right? And the kid looks at Tommy, he's like, dude, wait, have you not seen Ben today? And Tommy's like, no, that I haven't. And he's like, do you have, like, class with him or something? Tommy's like, yeah, actually, right after lunch, I have class with him. And the kid looks at him and is like, dude, you're going to want to go to that class. Tommy's like, what? He's like, dude, I don't want to spoil it for you. And Tommy is really confused. He's like, okay, that's weird. So anyways, Tommy and Will, they go into class, they roll in, and they walk in and they literally freeze at the front of the classroom. Like, they just full-blown stop. Anyways, so they stop at the front of the class, not because, like, they were just, like, casually stopping to, like, talk, or it was a abrupt stop because they were so incredibly shocked at what they saw that they thought, okay, something is wrong. Like, my eyes must be processing reality incorrectly because there's no way this is real. Ben was in class, and he must have gotten there before him. The rest of the class was, by the way, like, kind of like whispering and looking at each other or whatever, and kind of looking at Ben, because Ben was in class, sitting there. Yes, he had his name tag. He had the name tag, Skibidi, whatever. He also had a toilet bowl over his head. So obviously he didn't take like a whole he didn't take the whole like ceramic toilet out of like he didn't rip it out of like the bathroom or something and put that whole thing over him. But the cover in the rim of the toilet, like something you can like detach or something, he put the rim over his head, like, and the cover was like behind his head, essentially making him one of like the toilet head people. So at this point, Tommy's like, okay, this is obviously a prank. This is clearly, at this point, a joke. It's not the funniest joke ever, but one thing I can say is that Ben is sure dedicated to this joke. He is sure dedicated because probably wasn't getting too many laughs yesterday. In fact, he got 0. Probably wasn't getting too many laughs at his Instagram story post. And he's not getting too many laughs now, but he's definitely getting a lot more attention. So props to trying, I guess. But anyways, so Tommy and Ben walk to the back of the class, sit down. They just look at it. Or sorry, Tommy and Will. And Will looks at him just like, dude, dude, I think this is real. And Tommy's like, get out of here. It's obviously not real. This is clearly a joke. No way this kid's being serious. This is just like a really long, drawn out, unfunny joke that he thinks is funnier than it actually is. And Will's like, nah, dude, like, he wasn't like laughing or smiling or looking at people. Like, he wasn't looking at people looking for the attention. You know, if you're kind of doing like a little, I don't know, physical comedy, what would that? I mean, it's like a visual comedy thing. I think physical comedy is more like you fall down or something. Like, it's a comedy bit where it's physically there, right? You're dressing up to be a clown or whatever. And normally if you do that, you might be like smiling a little bit, maybe trying to stay in character, but you're kind of looking around, gauging how people are reacting. But Ben seemed as if, you know, he was very much just like keeping to himself. Like, Buddy was not looking at the outside world, as if like he was like, nope, this is me. Like, why would people look at me? Like, why would people look at me funny? They're not looking at Tommy funny. They're not looking at Will funny. Like, why would they look at me funny? And Tommy, like, when he hears Will say this, is like, dude, like, get out of here. Like, obviously not. Will's like, dude, I don't know, man. So anyways, when the teacher gets in, she kind of like stops, looks at Ben, and is kind of like, that's funny, Ben. And Ben speaks up for the first time, says, what is? Like, in an almost slightly aggressive tone. And the teacher's like, oh, the toilet thing around your head. He's like, and? The teacher's like, oh, okay. This teacher was pretty chill. I mean, instead of being like demanding he take it off, the teacher was like, okay, like, whatever. I mean, it's not really impeding class. Yeah, actually, you know what? I take that back. It is, in my opinion, impeding class a little bit because everyone is looking at this and they can't stop talking about it. They're clearly distracted over the fact this kid is wearing a toilet on his head, which is understandably distracting. Yeah, so I don't know. The teacher goes on with the class. Everyone's kind of murmuring about it a little bit, but eventually it dies down because at a certain point it's like, well, the joke's only so funny, man. Like, the joke is only so funny, and we're only going to care about it for so long. If you want to be kind of like weird and have this kind of like peacockish attire and like try and get attention, it's going to get old fast, especially if you're doing the same thing every day. Anyways, though, so things start to heat up. Things start to heat up a little bit because later on in that class, I don't know exactly, I wasn't given the exact context to why Ben's name was brought up. Maybe there was a project or something, or maybe someone needed a pencil. It was like, hey, Ben, can you get me a pencil? For some reason, someone casually referenced his name because they needed to. For the sake of the story, let's say someone was asking for a pencil, because it could have very well been that. Anyways, Ben, someone's like, it wasn't Tommy or Will. It was some random kid. He's like, hey, like, Ben, can I have a pencil? And Ben, like, snaps at this kid, like, what did you call me? And Ben's like, what? Or the kid's like, what? Ben's like, I don't know who this Ben is. And, like, people are kind of looking at him funny because he's, like, taking it super, super seriously. Like, he's actually visibly upset. And at this point, I think everyone at the very beginning was thinking, oh, this is like a joke. Like, it's not that funny, but it's a joke. But now people were confused because they're like, this is a very weird execution of this joke where you're extremely hostile to anyone who questions the legitimacy of this, like character you're putting on. Anyways, so the kid's like, I'm really confused. Like, the kid just doesn't understand why Ben's getting so mad. He's like, my name's not Ben. It is Skibidi. So the kid, like, cracks a little bit of a smile thinking, like, okay, well, Ben is just, like, putting on a character, and he's actually doing a really good job with this character because he had me fooled for a second that, you know, I did something wrong. Ben does not, like, he does not have a smile. He does not, like, break for a second. You know, when you're, like, part of, like, a joke or something, or you're, like, messing around with the boys and, like, you be, like, super serious, saying something ridiculous for a second, and then eventually you just crack a smile because you can't keep a straight face saying what you're saying, you know what I mean? It's one of those situations. And this was not the case. No smile was cracked. It's just a straight pan face, whatever. So at this point, like, Will turns to Tommy, and Tommy just looks at him with this look of, like, oh my God. Because Will kind of has a look of, like, I told you so, bro. Like, and Tommy looks at him with a sense of, like, he might be onto something. Because Tommy did not believe that this was serious. But now, this was getting more and more convincing that it might be serious. So anyways, they get back home. And once again, Ben posts on his Instagram story. So Tommy's on his, like, watching Reels or something. And just his daily dose of watching people just get brutally disembodied on Instagram Reels, as, it happens, and he goes on the stories again. He sees Ben posted again. So he's like, okay, maybe this is about the thing. Goes on, and Ben posts this long, rant on his story about, oh, people at my school aren't respecting the fact that I'm Skibidi Toilet now. I was called Ben by one of my classmates. This is ridiculous. You guys need to have some respect for me, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And it was a deranged paragraph, and it was 15 different stories, ranting. Very, if this was a joke, Buddy took it way too far. And at this point, Tommy does not think it's a joke anymore. Yeah, so anyways, almost as soon as Tommy is done, going through all the 15 stories, he gets a call from his friend Will. And Will is like, I told you, as soon as Tommy picked up, he's like, I told you, did you see the stories? Did you go on Instagram? Tommy's like, yeah, actually, I just finished, looking at them as soon as you called me. And so they talk for a little bit, and they're like, okay. At this point, Tommy is convinced that this is more likely real than it's a bit. And if it's a bit, well, it's the worst, it's the most poorly executed joke he's ever seen. Because at this point, I don't know. One, I think it's clear the reaction is just no one's finding this funny. So you would at least, maybe if you don't want to quit the character cold turkey, whatever, sure. But you at least wind it down, or at least try and change it up. Unless by changing it up, it means make you seem like a deranged psychopath spamming stories and screaming at people when you're wearing a literal toilet head on your head, bro. How do you not know that you're the strange one here? Anyways, though, so yeah, it's likely, they both agree that it's likely he's being serious. Not super sure the implications of that are, but they think he's being serious. And the next day in school is the most insane thing ever. If you thought that the last couple days for the kid who thinks he's Skibidi Toilet has been insane, well, you're definitely in for something special, because the following day, it's the end of the story, actually. The next day is the end of the story. But it is, I would say, 10 times more insane, ridiculous, crazy, however you want to put it, than the last 2 days, which I know is I know I'm saying a lot, but trust me on this one. If you made it this far into the video and you're watching on YouTube, I'd love it if you could go down and comment toilet down below. That will be the secret word of the day. And I'm going to do my best to leave as many hearts as I possibly can on your comments. But if you want the best chance of me seeing your comment the secret word of the day, toilet, 3 separate times. It's more notifications will be in my feed, and it'll be more likely I see you. And also, I do reply to people randomly, especially if you're quick and early, so of course have notifications on. But I do guarantee a reply, even if it takes 1 or 2 days, if you leave a comment as a super thanks comment. It's you go to the comment section, you're about to leave a comment, and you click the heart with the $sign icon in it. I will give you a full-fledged good reply, not just a thanks, man, but I'll actually try and reply, and of course you'll get a heart. So that's a guaranteed way if you're curious. And if you're a YouTube viewer and you don't know, I also have a Spotify that's linked in the description. And there's a few other links in the description. I have a Cameo if that's something you're interested in for the next month of January. Prices are reduced. I don't know, just decided to do that. Also, if you're interested in starting a YouTube channel or making money on YouTube specifically, I have a link where I've basically put together all the knowledge I've gained over the last 5, 6, 7 years of doing this. I put it together in a course. It'll only take you 4 to 5 hours, and I basically tell you everything I know. And there's a few other links down there as well. I've linked some stuff on Amazon that might help you with a setup if you're going to make a YouTube channel or just post or make any online content. They're linked. It's a special link. So I sign up with the Amazon referral program. So I get a commission and you don't pay anything more. So it helps me out. But I've also been told if you just click the link on Amazon and then buy something else unrelated, I also get a commission of that. So if you don't want to buy any YouTube equipment, but you're going to buy something on Amazon, just click one of those links and then buy the thing anyways. I don't know, man. And with that being said, let's get into probably the craziest day in this school's history. Anyways, so yes, a day in school that will go down in history for Tommy and Will and everyone else at that school, and infamously so for Ben. Anyways, they get to school. And first half of the day, totally normal. But then they get to the class. And Ben does not appear. He's late. He's not there. And Ben isn't usually 15 minutes early to class every day, right? But he's not normally late. Like, no one's really late in high school. I mean, sometimes, but you're normally prompt on time. At least when I went to high school, like, people kind of had to be there on time. If you're a minute late, the teacher would just be so mad for some reason. I'm like, bro, relax, not that deep. Anyways, though, so Ben eventually walks in 5 minutes into class. And the teacher's like, Ben, like, where have you been? And Ben's like, I'm taking over this class for a couple of minutes. It's necessary. He's walking in with his Skibidi toilet head or whatever. And he walks to the front of the class. And the teacher is too stunned to respond. Otherwise, I think the teacher would have never allowed this. But Ben stands at the front of the class. And he's like, I need to make an announcement to all of you guys. From this point on, I will be referred to as Skibidi. I am now embracing my new life as a Skibidi toilet, and you guys will not stop or stand in my way. I will not allow any of you to have any disrespect for me from this point on. And if I hear anyone call me by the name Ben, it's on sight. Basically insinuating that he would have a physical altercation with anyone who referred to him not by Skibidi. This generation is officially ruined. Leave a like on the video if you wanted. Anyways, so yeah, sure enough, the subscriber and his friend are just sitting in the back of the class like, what? Jaw slacked, whatever. And that's when some kid in the front of the class is like, okay, Ben. I think he did it on purpose. The way he said it, and just because if someone, I feel like if I was in that situation, I wouldn't say anything just because I would just be so uncomfortable by how weird and strange this was. I would just want this guy to sit down and allow the day to go on. I would just want that so badly that I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't want to risk prolonging this epic tirade, right? Anyways, so Ben's like, what? He like screamed that. I'm not going to scream it because I don't want to disturb anyone around me. And this kid's like, yeah, like, oh, what, Ben? Like, I didn't hear you. And Ben literally lunges at this kid. Like, he jumps full force into this, like, basically attacking this kid. The kid's so taken off back. Like, Ben basically lunges at him, and he's sitting at his desk and lunges at him at an angle where he, like, pushes him onto the ground out from his desk and is, like, wrestling him. And the teacher's like, Ben, get off of him. And Ben's like, my name's Skibidi. Imagine like you're wrestling some kid and the teacher's like, oh, get off of him. And your response is to correct them on calling you Skibidi toilet. Oh my God, bro. What the hell? Anyways, so the security guards are called. The wrestling continues on. Some kids try and go in and break it up, but they can't. The school security guard eventually comes down there, rips Ben off this kid, and like escorts him out of there. So the rest of the class is like not happening. It's totally disrupted. Everyone's talking. Tommy is looking at Will, and they're just like, oh my God, like this is the most ridiculous thing ever. Anyway, so this Skibidi toilet kid, he got suspended for a week, and I don't know, like he eventually came back to school a week later. And I think he'd apologize or he had to do something. He did not wear a Skibidi toilet head in. He did not make a sound. He stopped showing up to class. And at this point, they actually haven't seen from him for a long time. He came back after a week of being suspended for a couple days, and then he just dipped.